as a CISO, you should really try to establish some direct relationships with colleges, right? It's a good pipeline of students that are coming through. They're going to be the next generation of cyber security professionals. It's good to know those names, right? It's good to know those skill sets. And along the way, when you establish those relationships at universities, right, those professors might reach out to you, or when you reach out to the professors and be like, hey, I got a really top talent here. I think you should take a look.
This is a Security Weekly production. Security Weekly is a resource of Cyber Risk Alliance.
The Cybersecurity Collaborative is proud to present CISO Stories. Each week, CISO Stories takes a deep dive on security leadership with one of the contributors to my latest book, the best-selling CISO Compass: Navigating Cybersecurity Leadership Challenges with Insights from Pioneers, as well as other top CISOs and industry security leaders. The Cybersecurity Collaborative is a unique membership community enabling cybersecurity leaders to work together in a trusted environment. To learn more, visit securityweekly.com/CSC or visit cyberleadersunite.com. I am your host, Todd Fitzgerald, and this week we welcome Fred Kwong, VP and CISO at DeVry University.
Hey, Todd, thanks for having me. It's kind of an interesting start for me. I kind of grew up in IT, so I started working in IT on the help desk, and I eventually moved into the networking team. And when I was at working on the networking team, I worked on a little bit of the firewalls a bit, and knew about the IPS systems. And at the organization I was with at the time, there was an opening in security, and I felt like I was a little burned out from doing networking for 6-7 years at that point. And when that opening came up, the security guys actually approached me, be like, "Hey, would you be interested in jumping over to the security team?" And I was like, "Well, that sounds intriguing and fantastic. I get to learn something new and do something a little bit different at the company that I appreciated." So I took that opportunity, and I really first started off doing project management kind of work for the security team, and then ultimately learned the technical chops along with what I needed from the security team perspective. And so that's kind of how my foray into security kind of started.
Well, you said really two great skill sets I heard in there. One is I see the help desk is just such a great training ground for IT people. And then the second piece, the skill that seems to be missing a lot in organizations on the IT side is good project management skills.
Yeah, I feel very fortunate, right, from a career path perspective. To your point, Todd, the help desk, right, because you have to know a little bit about everything, right? You're supporting, at the time, I was supporting a 10,000 plus employee organization, and we had, probably 50, 60 some applications we supported at the help desk, at least at some level. And so I got to learn a little bit about everything the organization did just based off of the technologies they used. And so that gave me a good base of like data, right? In terms of just what do I need to do, how to communicate with people, how to resolve things as quickly as possible. And then, quite honestly, then from there, when I moved into networking, I didn't have a network background. The network manager, took a chance on me and really let me be kind of a cable monkey guy to begin with, right? And so, I was doing the cord patching and all those things while learning the technology. So being of help, learning the technologies, and I think, anytime you're in IT and information security very specifically, it's good to learn different aspects of IT because, as security professionals, we also have to know a little bit about everything when it comes down to it, and how applications work, how networks work, different OSs, whether it's Windows and Linux. So I was very fortunate in my career to be able to kind of sign up for all of the above, right? Before I really dove deep into security.
I remember once when I had taken a new job and I was responsible for business intelligence, database administration, and security. And my background was primarily database administration, data modeling. And so I was running the security department. And one of the security analysts was telling me one of the pieces of advice they were given was to learn about the infrastructure. Before you can be a really good security analyst, you really need to know that infrastructure. So, it sounds like, you were right in that same camp.
Yeah. It's funny, in the old days, right? There were two sides of the coin when it came to IT. There was the ISP, right? The infrastructure side, and the ASP, the application side, right? And we'd always draw the boxes where, hey, here's all the network and the components associated with it. And then here's the black hole for the application side, right? And then it's vice versa for the applications guy, right? They are, here's all the code that we put in. And then here's how it works with the infrastructure. And again, it's just a big black box, right? And I think as part of security, we learn to be that translation component of those two things as well, right? Because we need to know how the code works and how the infrastructure works together. So a lot of times, I think even when it comes to troubleshooting, security usually often gets called in. One, because our technologies kind of sit in the middle, but two, we also often act as that translation arm, right? Or that middleware component to bridge those two teams. And, now with the cloud and doing Terraform scripts and, infrastructure as code, that's changed quite a bit. But back in the old days, I think that was kind of part of my learning curve, was to really learn both sides of the house.
Sure. So you have been the CISO for DeVry University, and so you're working with students, in your organization every day. And we have this huge talent shortage out there. I think I remember seeing not too long ago that it is the number one job growth area of all U.S. occupations until 2030. It has the highest growth rate, and so we have this skill shortage. So we want to talk today about how do CISOs tap into universities, and not just your university in particular, but just universities in general, and how should we be leveraging this talent resource? So start us off with that. How can CISOs start to work in that environment to expand their skill set?
The universities are pretty unique, right, in the way they're kind of set up and configured. And so it's really important to spend some time and reach out to the folks at your local universities, right, or where you're trying to target new employees to start. I think that's a good place. A lot of times when universities are building out their programs, the folks come from all over in the US, but the reality is, a lot of times, a lot of the students get used to the environment they're in and, like the town that they're in. And so they'll look for jobs in those types of areas, or they might look to go back home, right? Depending. So I would pick out and kind of target, well, what universities have good cyber programs to begin with, right? And there's a lot of different rating systems out there. So, choose your own adventure when it comes to looking at those programs. But I think there's a couple of key things I can kind of point out. The first one is just understanding what is it that university offers. Do they have a boot camp, right? When it comes to cyber, is it a certificate program? Do they have a 2-year program, an associate's program, or a 4-year? And then above and beyond that, do they offer a master's program? And again, depending on the skill set that you're looking for and the type of person you're trying to recruit, that may make a difference in terms of the different avenues that the university and what they cater to, or who they cater to, right, when it comes to their students. Another way to kind of think about it as well is, Todd, you mentioned, the skill shortage is pretty high. I know the number that I've been thrown around is around 700,000 openings in cyber today. And so while we can tap into universities, and find out like who's the next generation coming up through the skills and to, move into cyber programs. A lot of times, a lot of organizations are also looking internally, right? So they're trying to reskill some existing folks. Maybe you're taking a auditor and turning them into a cyber GRC professional, right? Or you're taking a Windows or Unix or network person and having them learn a little bit more about cyber. And so there's programs out there that will help those folks that already have professional skills to reskill or upskill themselves into the cyber world, right? So every college does that a little bit different. Every university does that a little bit different. And so it's important to kind of think through, what am I trying to accomplish? Am I looking for new talent? Am I looking to reskill my folks? And so the different colleges will have different advantages in terms of the folks that we're trying to go after.
Are there different programs that, that target like a reskilling of a certain skill set versus the entry level in the university programs?
Yeah, absolutely. So a lot of the certificate or boot camps might be more geared towards reskilling or upskilling to that point. But the 4-year programs are usually aimed more towards a traditional 4-year student, right? But the universities themselves, depending on what you're trying to do when you're coming to upskill or reskill, may offer more services for those types of students as well. A little bit more ability for you to shift, right, in terms of when they offer classes, right? Because they know, hey, if you're a reskilling person, we may need to offer more classes on the nights and weekends, right? Or some self-trained courses where you meet once a week and then you work and then you meet again, right? So they have different programs based off of the needs of those students, right? And the professors, knowing that if you're a professional, they may have more leniency towards, when homework is due and when you can take exams and those types of things, right? So certain universities cater to that a little bit more. Others may be a little bit more strict in terms of their regimen, right? And what they want their students to be and when they need to come on campus, right? Those types of things.
Mm-hmm. The article this podcast is based upon can be viewed in the best-selling cybersecurity leadership book, CISO Compass, Navigating Cybersecurity Leadership Challenges with Insights from Pioneers. So how do we differentiate between the different programs that we have, the associate's degree, the bachelor's degree, the certificate, or the master's degree, in terms of what we need for different jobs in cyber?
Yeah, that's a great question, Todd. And the way to look at it is look at the different tracks that the university offers. And the best way to do that, I would say 2 things. Number 1 is reach out to the dean of the where the cyber program is and, work with him and talk with him about, hey, tell me about, to your point, what is in your associate's program? What is the expectation of that program? Who are you going after, right? From a target audience perspective, and compare that to their 4-year program and their certificate programs. And a lot of times there's also flexibilities in terms of each of those programs, because, some schools might not offer a 2-year, they only offer a 4-year. But what they'll do is they'll give credits to you towards that 4-year degree based off of work or education experience, right? So if you're coming on board and you're a strong network engineer already, you can bypass some of those networking 101 type of classes, right? And go straight to the advanced courses, right? And other universities may not let you do that, right? They might be like, hey, you know what? We need you to take X amount of hours with our university, and in order for us to certify you or to give you a degree, we want you to take all our classes, right? So depending again on that university and who they're trying to cater to, it may or may not go well from that perspective. Mm-hmm. The other thing that I would definitely recommend is, if you get a chance, ask about seeing if you can audit a class, right? To get a good feel of the professor, who's teaching the course, how they're teaching it. Are they more a scholar-based professor, or are they a practitioner, right? Or a hybrid of the both? And I think that's important as well. There's certain universities that are definitely going to be geared towards more research base, and other universities are going to be more technical focused, right? What does the enterprise need today? And again, depending on the organization you work with, one fit might be better than the other, depending. And so, the research-based universities, they have a lot of funding, which is fantastic to, build upon, call it next generation encryption or new AI algorithms that are going to help us, right, from a security perspective. But they might not focus more on the practical skills that you may need on a day-to-day job. But if you're trying to advance some of those pieces, let's say, your organization is interested in understanding how to make use of some of the newer technologies out there and how you can code new ML or AI algorithms. Maybe that is more geared towards what you're trying to upskill your people to do, right? On the other hand, on the flip side, if you're looking for someone that is, maybe more focused, you need more SOC analysts, or maybe you need a security or cloud engineer. There might be other programs that are going to be more focused on aligning with what AWS and Azure are teaching from a cloud compute perspective, and can offer things not only with their classes, but also offer those certifications that kind of go along with it as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I know the offerings can be so different. I teach, for example, for Northwestern University, and it's for the Masters in IT program. And I teach a cybersecurity leadership course and a risk management course, and that's more geared at people that want that management layer, the CIO layer, the CISO layer, the chief technical officer layer, that they're going to that university. And we were doing some research across the university and saw that there are all these cybersecurity courses in different places, not all in the same place. Some may be in engineering, some may be in the business school, in all kinds of different places. So as we're looking at people that we're trying to, bring into the workforce, that it's their first cybersecurity job, and we say, hey, we have these 700,000 openings, we want you to get a job. What do you think is like the best path for somebody that says, hey, I want to go to school and I want to get a certificate, a degree, something, and I want to get a job when I'm out? Where should they be starting off at?
That's a great question, Todd. When I think about, kind of how my own career, I almost feel like if cyber is your passion, right, and you can find a job in information technology, whatever that job is, take that job to begin with, right? Whether it's at the help desk, maybe it's doing desktop support, and you can use your cyber energy in those jobs very easily, right? And that does two things for you. One, again, I think starting out in cyber is hard in general, right? Because when you're in cyber, you really do need to know a little bit about everything. And having that work experience, nothing really beats that, right? So if you've done desktop support for a while, or if you've done help desk support for a while, you understand a little bit more about how Windows servers are set up, how to manage users, how to harden desktops, right? How to work with AV and EDR software potentially. And you can expand upon those, or even if you even get into networking, maybe again, kind of like I did, I started out as kind of a cable guy, right? Just patching cables, and you learn about route switch, you learn about the networking protocols, and then you ease your way into, learning a deep dive into some of those technologies, but then you gain more of a breadth around security. That puts you in a good position to be a good security person from a technical aspect right off the bat, because you can bring something to the table that maybe some of your security peers might not. So for example, if someone that grew up in the Unix world and then also became a security engineer or security analyst, it's really cool that they're strong in looking at Linux systems. And there's a lot of security that goes around hardening those types of systems and using tools in the Linux world for security. And, if you have a peer that's more of a Windows guy, now your skill sets complement one another, right? And there's always going to be teams looking for those, how do we fill gaps in terms of our security team that will help us make us better as an overall team, right? So get in wherever you can and then continue to build the skill set through either on the job or, reskilling or upskilling through university courses. And then, of course, there's online teaching as well, right? I think we've all heard of things like Udemy or Linux Academy and those types of programs. If you're able to learn through that one-way communication and do that well, they have good labs oftentimes associated with that. And you can do a lot of self-paced learning. It's good to do that as a little bit of a hobby or maybe on your off time and continue to kind of upskill yourself, because you're not going to learn everything on the job. I think there's too much to do in security to know everything and do that while you're working, right? So you're going to have to take some time and, play with it a little bit in your own time frame at home, maybe when after you put the kids to bed or whatever the case may be. And that's, I know, Todd, you're a fan of always constantly learning. And I think the same way, right? Whether you pick up a book and learn or watch a YouTube video or take some online courses, any way that you can continue your knowledge base, because security is ever evolving, it's ever changing. And if that's not the pace that you like, then it's probably not the job for you, right? I think with security, you're learning till the very end.
Definitely. So what do you think about CISOs? When we're looking for talent, should we be? There's been some discussion about should we still be requiring bachelor's degrees for people coming into security, or should we be looking? Is a certificate enough? Is a associate's degree the bottom line? I mean, where is it that we should be recruiting for our cybersecurity teams?
Yeah, I would say, the bachelor's is a requirement. I don't know if I necessarily will always 100% agree with that. I think it's a plus to have one, just because, someone that's gained a bachelor's means that they've put in some work, right? They've put in some sweat equity in terms of learning the courses, and especially some of the more technical focused schools where they have hands-on training. That means that they have 4 years of experience working with technologies, learning the different skills that they need in the security realm, which is a good thing. But is that the only way to learn? Absolutely not, right? Because there's so much on the internet today. There's so much in terms of book knowledge. And I don't think there's any one way that any one person learns, right? Some people, they learn and they can pick up a book, absorb it and be good. Other people need that, face-to-face interaction with a professor or teacher so they can ask questions and they learn better that way. So, we shouldn't dictate who we hire based off of the best way that they learn, right?
So how do we make how do we make that assessment that they've learned enough that they could add value to my team?
Yeah, so there's a couple ways, if you want to call it testing of those individuals. There's obviously the traditional interview process, asking kind of technical questions. But there's also technologies out there that can help us, right? There's things like cyber ranges that companies can sign up for and run their applicants through it, right? And see how they do in terms of real world scenarios around, how do you handle this problem? How do you do that critical thinking, right? When it comes to observing, and do you have understand the right commands and have the right skills to run, right? To get past this hurdle in the cyber range, right? That's another way that people can do it. Looking at things like certifications, I think definitely is another way to kind of understand if they have the aptitude to learn. So even if they don't have the right skill sets, if they've been able to get a certificate or associate or a certification, that also proves, hey, this person is interested in this. They took the time to learn these things, and they went out and proved that they can, continue to learn, right, through gaining knowledge. And I think that's important.
Fred, this has been great, and I think this is such a resource and a place that CISOs need to tap into, rather than just looking at the experienced job market, to bring people into their organizations and develop them. Any other advice that you would give us as we leave here for current CISOs, experienced CISOs, emerging CISOs, as they're going down this journey and trying to get the best talent into their organizations?
Yeah, I'll bring up three final thoughts, Todd. The first one is, as a CISO, you should really try to establish some direct relationships with colleges, right? It's a good pipeline of students that are coming through. They're going to be the next generation of cyber security professionals. It's good to know those names, right? It's good to know those skill sets. And along the way, when you establish those relationships at universities, right, those professors might reach out to you, or when you reach out to the professors and be like, hey, I got a really top talent here. I think you should take a look, right? Because those professors know, a lot of the professors are scholar practitioners, right? They're not just teachers. They also, have a cyber job as well. So, they can give you a little bit of a heads up, right, as the talent comes through the university. The second thing that I'll mention is, if you're looking for talent, go where the college students are, right? It could be associations that are, geared towards students in cybersecurity. It could be sponsoring an event. Food always brings students to events, free food. If you get your name out there, they'll remember you as when they think about, places they want to work as well, right? Because they'll remember, oh yeah, hey, Todd sponsored this, sounds like he was a great guy. I'd be interested in learning a little bit more about his company, because it is a relationship at the end of the day, right? You're doing a little bit of courting, part of the dating process, right? And I think the last thing I'll mention is, don't forget about the underrepresented communities, right? Because there's such a huge gap here, and a lot of organizations, are starting to focus more on diversity, equity, inclusion. This is a great opportunity for you to be a leader in that space by bringing in talent that fits that mold, right, of serving those underrepresented communities. And a lot of universities take on that challenge as well. So if you tap into that talent pool where they're addressing those underserved, underrepresented communities, right, your team will get stronger. You'll bring more diversity into your team. And you'll help your organization, meet their goals, because a lot of organizations now are really trying to push forward with their DEI type of programs. So I think that's a good way to kind of think about it as well.
Yeah, I think that's very important. And we've had several podcasts on about the diversity and inclusion, a whole topic all by itself. I know at the Cyber Collaborative, we looked at our board a couple of years ago and said, well, it's not very diverse. It was primarily male, and we had one female. And so now we are 50% gender, ethnic represented, even though the industry at the top is not represented that way. We thought it was important to lead out. If we're going to recruit people into this field, we need to have the top the top of our organizations look like that as well, so that people can see that, this is what we're about.
And I think once you have that talent pool, right, and when people come to interview at your organization and they see like, hey, look at this diverse group of people that I'll get to work with, right? And, that helps them not only see themselves in that organization, but then inside the field, they understand, wow, because it's so diverse, I know I can make it here as well, because, I'm one of those underrepresented community folks, and I see those folks that look like me. And, I think it will give you the leg up, right, when it comes to recruiting that top talent as well.
Yeah. Well, thanks a lot, Fred. I know the skills shortage is a big problem that we have, and getting the right skills. And thanks for the work that you're doing to help bring more students, into this field, and to help encourage people to adopt this as a career path, because I think it's a wonderful career path. So
thanks so much for the time, Todd.
Thank you. Visit more CISO Stories podcasts on securityweekly.com, where you will find an index to prior episodes. The Cybersecurity Collaborative is a unique membership community enabling cybersecurity leaders to work together in a trusted environment. To learn more, visit securityweekly.com/CSC or visit cyberleadersunite.com.